Hey guys, welcome back. It's Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com, and I am here with Cut Cardstock today to share the technique I use for color pencils on vellum. I'm going to be using a Digi stamp from Syberia Design. You can find her at alexsyberia.com, and the cardstock I'm going to be using today is all from CUTCARDSTOCK.com. All of the supplies that I use today will be listed in the comments down below, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that and we'll get started with the card. So what I have here is a piece of Curious Translucent 27-pound vellum. This is definitely thinner than the 40-pound vellum that you may be used to using on your cards. The advantage of this vellum is that it will run through any regular printer through the regular automatic feed without any issues at all. Sometimes a 40-pound vellum could jam in your printer's automatic feed. I will link a post down below that talks all about printer settings and options to be able to print on thicker cardstocks and print your own pattern papers. So I've printed 4 per page, which scales down the image and also gives me extras to work with. I will cut this into A2 size panels, and then later on you'll see that I'll fussy cut some images. So here's my A2 size panel. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my polychromos pencils, and on a scrap piece of the same gold vellum, I'm going to test out my colors so that I can determine my color palette. Anytime you're working with color pencils, you want to make sure that you have a really sharp tip, so keep your sharpener handy. You'll need it often. So I went ahead, I think this is a wild rose, so I went ahead and Googled wild rose so I can see what kind of varieties they come in. I'm not necessarily going for a realistic look, but I just wanted to have an idea of what do the shadows look like, what are the color variations. I love that white one at the top, and I don't end up using it in this card, but I may need to revisit that and do that because I think it's just beautiful. So I will have all of the specific color pencils that I use listed in my blog post. I'll have a link to that blog post down below. But you can see I have a very sharp tip, and I'm going to go ahead and go in with a light touch and add some of my shadows. That'll be the first thing that I add. So typically with Copic markers, alcohol markers, and also my color pencils, I'll start with the darkest color and then move to my lightest colors. But that's not necessarily the right way. You do what is most comfortable for you. If it makes more sense to do your highlights, start with that first and then work your way up to the darker colors. So I've added this, it's a light ochre color, which I think is gorgeous. It's one of my favorite polychromos pencils. And then I'm just adding in more of this dusky salmon color, and I'll keep building up the color. It's important to note that because this is at higher speed and because it's on video, you can't really tell the amount of pressure that I'm using. And it's very little pressure at all. You can see that the color that goes down is very light, which is intentional. If you press really hard with your color pencils and put down a thick layer, it's going to be difficult for you to blend your colors and to continue to build the color saturation up. So start with a light touch. When I first started using color pencils, my hand would be so tired and cramped at the end of the project because I was pressing so hard to get that really great color saturation. But what I found was blending was extremely difficult. So use a light touch, barely, put any color down, and then just build your colors. I've said it before, I'll share it again. Using color pencils is not a sprint, it's a marathon. You have to pace yourself, you have to take your time. This isn't a quick project. It's something that's going to take time, and if you enjoy coloring, you'll really enjoy this. If coloring is not your strong suit, then I highly recommend starting with a smaller flower. So up in the right hand corner, I'll link another video to color pencil on dark cardstock where I did another large bloom by Syberia, but I also did a small bud and leaf cluster as well. So that's what I would recommend starting off with if you're just getting started with your color pencils. Now for this leaf that is this petal that is more recessed, it's going to have darker shadows. The first petal that I did is going to be in full sunlight. It's really an open petal and it's most forward. The one that I'm coloring now, I came in with a darker brown color, so I came in with a walnut brown color, and then the other colors like the salmon, the dusky salmon, this light ochre that I'm using now, and I'm going to come in with another brown. It's kind of like a medium brown, and I'll use that to add shading to these upper corners of the petal where they're not deeply recessed, but they would still have a shadow. Now where Alex added a little bit of a dip in the petal or a wrinkle, I'm going to be adding some shadow to those as well. And I'm not necessarily using my browns for that. I'm still using those dusky salmons and then just blending that out with the light ochre. And I won't do that on all of the divots, but I do want to add it to a few places because I think it adds more character and depth to the petals. I wanted you to be able to see the coloring in real time for these first few petals. The rest of the petals are going to be done the same way, as well as the leaves. Of course, I'll change the colors that I'm using. So what I'll do for the rest of the video is speed up the footage so that you're not here all day. Because like I said, coloring with coloring pencils does take a while. Here's that medium brown I spoke of. I'm going to switch to a magenta and fuchsia colored flower here, which I really enjoyed this color palette. And what I'll do is in my blog post, I'll have a link to that below in the comment section. I will have a list of all of the specific polychromos pencils that I use in case you're interested in those, as well as all of the supplies that I used in today's card as well. Another thing I want to mention is that I'm avoiding coloring over the printed lines of the image because I want those to stay dark black and to not be coated by the color pencil. So if you go over it a little bit, it's fine, but I'm actively trying to avoid coloring on those lines. For this particular flower, I wanted my shadows to be really dark, so you're going to see that I build up the color quite a bit. But I didn't want to lose definition of the individual petals. So the way I'm going to keep things a little bit brighter is by using white for my main color in the center of each petal. So I'll add a little bit of the white and then I'll come back in with my darker colors to blend out the edges of those whites and almost flick that color into the white area like you would do with your Copic markers. And I love how that was able to blend really dark colors with the white quite easily. So I will go ahead and put some music on and I'll catch you back at closer to the end when we're ready to start assembling the cards. Okay, so we're almost done with our image here, and sorry, I was out of frame for a good part of the leaves, so that's why a lot of that footage was cut out. But it was at this point that I kind of panicked and was like, what kind of card design am I going to do with this image that I've now colored? I didn't want to jump right in and fussy cut it because I spent so much time on it. So I used my extra images, fussy cut that, cut one of the other ones out with a decollage die, and played around with what kind of card design I wanted. What I landed on was the fussy cut image. So now I'm going to take my color piece, and you can see how nice and shiny it is. That the gold vellum is just so beautiful, and even with the color pencil, even though the color pencil looks opaque, you can still see the shine through the color pencil and the iridescence of this paper, which is just so beautiful. This card in person is so much more beautiful than what I was able to capture in the photos. So you just want to make sure that you're using a really sharp pair of detail scissors, and ideally you want to move your paper and keep your scissors stationary. I'm still working on my fussy cutting, to be honest. So here's the piece, and I think that the fussy cutting turned out really well, so I was very happy about that. I've used Altenew Tall Alpha die to cut out Stardream Metallic Gold cardstock, which is one of my favorite gold cardstocks. My sub-sentiment is from Altenew Mega Greetings 3 stamp set. And I decided that the background was too plain, so I'm going to use Altenew Watercolor Stripe Stencil to emboss this Stardream Metallic Poison Ivory cardstock. The reason I'm being so fiddly with the placement of the stencil is because I want to stamp my sub-sentiment in one of the negative spaces of the stripes. So I've gone ahead and run this through my die cutting machine with an embossing pad, and I just think this is a great background. It's really subtle, but it adds enough texture so that the card doesn't look too plain. I'll bring the card closer to the camera to try and show you some of the shimmer and shine, both of the cardstock in the back, the letters, and it was really difficult to capture the shine on the colored image. So here I have my floral on top of my card panel, just so that I can make sure I get my sentiment in place. That freaked me out. You guys, I would have been devastated if that pigment ink had dropped on my florals. So my card was saved there, thank goodness. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this in Altenew Obsidian Black Pigment Ink, and that stamped great. And then I decided that I wanted to add a little something extra to my letters, so I went ahead and cut 3 more sets of the letters from Stardream Metallic Fairway cardstock, and this was actually the 5x7 flat cards that I believe I got in the $1.99 sales section over on CUTCARDSTOCK.com. So definitely, if you're shopping over there, make sure that you check out the $1.99. I get these 5x7 flat cards all of the time, and I use them for die cuts like these. Because it's a heavyweight cardstock, it stacks really nicely, and I find that you don't need as many when you're stacking. And here you can see the fun green from the side, which adds a little extra something to the card. I knew that I wanted to pop up my florals for some added dimension, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do that without seeing them. So I went ahead and tried the double-sided Derice foam squares, and I was amazed that you couldn't see it through the images. So my first thought was, well, maybe that's because the color pencils are so dark that you can't see the adhesive squares through this gold vellum. But I used the same adhesive on the uncolored version as well. So I'll show you that in a few minutes. So it really is a great adhesive to be able to use on the back side of vellum if you need to pop it up. So I've got my letters attached. I've got my sub-sentiment, and the last thing that I did was to add some Nuvo clear crystal drops. And I thought about using black, so I'm just trying to show you the shimmer here. I thought about using black, but I felt like it distracted from the florals, and I really wanted all of the focus to be on these florals because I think that they turned out just so beautiful. The other thing that I did is I added white jelly roll pen to the stamen just to brighten those up. So here you can see the finished card here, and I just love how it turned out. Now I had those extra florals that I had fussy cut, so I definitely wanted to put them to use in another card. So I went ahead and used the same cardstock for my card panel and ran that through an embossing folder for a little bit of a different look and pattern. I backed my die cut letters with black cardstock instead of green. And I went ahead and used the black Nuvo drops because I needed a little something extra to this card. I used the same Derice foam squares to pop up these florals, and I think it has a really elegant and simple look to it. So I really enjoyed this card as well. Here are the two cards together, and I'm just delighted with how these turned out. This floral image from Syberia is so beautiful. And I fell in love with the color palette that I used with the polychromos pencils. I think that the olive greens, the oranges, and that deep purple are just perfect for autumn. And these are some of my favorite gold cardstocks. So be sure to check out CUTCARDSTOCK.com because all of the gold cardstocks are on sale this month. I'll have all the supplies listed below. And if you enjoyed this video today, the best way that you could support me is by hitting the like button below, subscribing if you haven't already, and sharing this video with your crafty friends. The affiliate links below help me to bring new content to you, so if you use the affiliate links below, I do get a small portion of the sale at no cost to you that goes right back into my blog and YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching today. I really appreciate you spending time with me, and until next time, breathe, ink, inspire.